Hey everyone! Can everyone see me and hear me okay? Please let me know. So I just tried to go live, and right before I went live a while ago, earlier this evening, had some major issues. So please, if you can hear me, please let me know. Just want to make sure this is working. Okay, cool. Wow, such a stressful night. Apparently, I guess my Logitech updated or something, and something was off. But the good news is, I probably won't have these issues anymore because I just got a studio in Hollywood. So this show is going to end up being at a pretty major studio. In Hollywood, right off Hollywood Boulevard. Got this like amazing production house, which is actually in the same building that iHeartRadio is in, and like apparently Will Ferrell has a podcast there. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm really excited about it. So I won't just be going from home anymore doing this. I'm actually going to have a full live setup. Hopefully get a crew together, but right now it's going to be just we're doing a kind of a network, so it's going to be like me and two other shows are going to be sharing this like studio warehouse kind of space, and the other show is the person who runs Fake Checkers. Sean, he runs Fake Checkers, so he's going to have a show there. And then also Dr. Gold. I don't know if any of you have heard about her, but she's actually the one. She led the team of doctors that came forward speaking out about everything that's going on in the world health wise, that situation, and from the entire Senate recently. So she's really well known for that. And just turns out we all came together to rent a studio space. So, it took a lot for me to get to this point and get into it. So, if you would like to help me out with this and help me with this operation, please donate in the chat or buy one of my new Shaman Spears, which is at www.shamanspears.com. I just came out with the Pantheon collection, and like basically the last few months, I've put everything into this show because it's just really important to me, like this and Fake Checkers, Fake Checkers will also be run out of my new studio space in Hollywood. So basically everything's going to be happening from there. And if you would like to help me with this operation, please donate, because like I said, I've put everything I have into this, and it's just this in my art right now. Hollywood's been mostly shut down. I was a performer, entertainer my whole life, and now this is my way of going about it remotely, kind of. So please, so you can donate in the chat. YouTube, monetized now. And then Shaman Spears latest collection, the Pantheon collection. So I'm really excited about it. Let me just fix my mic here. So yeah, technical difficulties probably won't be happening anymore in the future, because I'm gonna have some people helping me out, helping me run the show. I'm gonna have like a full team getting together. But for right now, actually, my agent in Hollywood should be helping me run the show. But I'm really excited about this because I'm gonna actually be getting together like a talk show set. So I've been kind of looking online, looking at different talk show sets, and really getting something cool together for you guys. So, that's why I haven't been doing as many shows lately, because I'm just kind of, thinking of how I'm going to redo this all, like how I'm going to go about this the right way. And also, I really have some awesome ideas of what I'm going to do for this show, where I can, instead of just me talking live on camera, I'm actually going to like do some very well thought out, like pre-shot episodes to share. So that's going to be very interesting. And I have a lot of great ideas for that. Because, just my whole life, I've been a researcher in UFO, metaphysical topics and ancient civilizations, things like that. So that's kind of the main idea for my show. And because I just kind of spent my whole life building this platform as a performer, entertainer, and I want to bring this information that I've researched my whole life to you guys in the proper way. So I'm excited about it. And So tonight's show, I'm going to get into my Shaman Spears. There's a lot of people always ask me what they are, how to use them, how they work, because they aren't just art. They're actually basically technology. So they're like art with a purpose, but really they're a kind of technology, and that's what's interesting about them. So, and also, like I said again, www.shamanspears.com. The Pantheon collection is now available, and if you want to help me run my operation and get this all going, that is the best way to do it right now. So I'm really excited about everything. It's definitely a new beginning for me, and I want to bring some really cool people on the show. It'll be awesome to do it from this talk show set because it won't be just me going live, but I may actually, if the people are around, the people I'm interviewing are around, I can actually bring them in the studio and, talk to them in the studio. And it'll be kind of like Oprah or like Dr. Phil or something, not quite as big of a setup as that, but pretty close. So, yeah, it should be interesting. So the Pantheon collection. So what's unique about this collection is that I painted all the staves gold. I haven't ever done a base coat before on my staves, and this is something new I am doing. So I'm really excited about it. So that's why I'm calling it the Pantheon collection, because it's gold, and the Greek pantheon, Egyptian pantheon, there's like pantheons of gods and goddesses, and gold just kind of, to me, it was like painting the staves gold. It just kind of made me think of that. So that's why I call it the Pantheon collection. And also because we're all gods and goddesses in our own rights, in my opinion. I talk about that a lot on my show. So that's why I'm calling this collection the Pantheon collection. What's also interesting about this collection is that I have some dragon glass spearheads. In case you haven't seen Game of Thrones, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, dragon glass is what is the only thing that can kill White Walkers. So dragon glass is actually obsidian. That's what they use on the show. It's obsidian. And these are obsidian. But yeah, so I have some dragon glass spears. I know the world's getting a little crazy right now, so if you want to be prepared, there's a couple dragon glass spears in the collection. So yeah, that also, what's interesting about this new collection is I'm doing these kind of leather handles now. And by the way, I don't use any real leather or real fur in any of my products, just because a lot of my clients are vegan, and I don't want to have to harm animals in the making of my products. So please, yeah, go online and check out, I probably have about 20 something new spears up on there right now. So definitely go check that out. But this is a new thing I've been doing. Normally I have the handles faux fur, but now I'm doing this kind of like leather handle thing, because a lot of times when people are holding like the fur handles, the fur gets kind of messed up because like sweating and holding it. So I think this worked out much better, and I'm really liking it. So definitely brought them up on a whole new level here. Someone's asking me if I have an OnlyFans. I get that a lot on my show here. So I just want to say, like, no, I don't. I don't do that. It might be interesting if I got one and like wore a funky outfit and talked about aliens just for fun, just so that I could tell everyone, like, yeah, I have an OnlyFans, and they think it's like, and then it's just me, just like sitting there talking. That would be pretty funny. But no, I don't. I don't do anything like that. I don't do porn, okay? But if you would like to donate to someone who isn't taking your clothes off for money, please throw some money in the chat right here. It would be very much appreciated. Or buy my spears. So that's your answer for that. Asteroid coming, whatever your name was. Anyway, so the new collection. So a lot of people on here might not even know what Shaman Spears are. So first, I'll take a second to explain that. So basically, They're energy channeling devices. So every spear I make, I put copper coils, crystals, magnets, and sand I collect from sacred places around the world down the insides of them because they're all made of bamboo and the bamboo is hollow. And I actually picked bamboo myself in Topanga Canyon because Topanga Canyon has this sort of fire, water, air, like earth vortex like energy going on there. So I think it's really interesting to get my bamboo from there. So that's where I always collect it. I actually go in and harvest it myself, and then I go in and add the fur and or I mean add the copper coils, crystals, and magnets down the insides. Um, What's also interesting about them is there's naturally magnetic hematite sand inside. Hematite has actually been found inside our brains. Scientists have found that, and this is funny because I actually started kind of intuitively putting them inside my spears, and then all these articles started coming out saying that hematite is actually in our brains. Scientists found this, and hematite is naturally magnetic. So that means that, we're all interconnected magnetically. And if that's the case, that's probably what could allow us to have the ability to be telepathic. So I find that very interesting. And with the insides of my spears being filled with hematite, which is naturally magnetic, quartz. So I also collect all these like little quartz chips from giant rock. In Joshua Tree, there's like this is the largest freestanding rock in the world, and the Hopi Native Americans actually called it the heart of the earth. And there's like a lot of prophecies around it. It's very interesting. Just look into it online. Giant rock. It's actually on the intersection of the 33rd ley line, which is important to the Freemasons, and the ley line that is the same ley line that the Pyramid of Giza is on. So right next to Giant Rock, there's a mountain made completely of quartz crystal, and actually the chiefs of the Hopi tribe would always go there, and it was only the chiefs of the tribe were allowed to go there. It was considered such a sacred spot, and they had these kind of baths carved out of the crystal, and they would take baths in the crystal. So I actually like now at this point, like people have kind of like torn it apart, and it's basically like crystal gravel this mountain is now. It used to apparently have like branches of crystals like coming out of it, but now it's like, kind of like smaller chunks. So I actually go and collect a bunch all the time and repurpose them to put down the insides of my spears. So that's a very interesting quality to it in and of itself. So that's inside all my spears. Also, I put like actual magnets down the inside. So they're very powerful energetically. So being magnetic and having quartz in it, and just think like quartz is in like transistor radios and all of our computers. This is actually a very technical kind of thing. So everyone that holds a spear is technically interfacing with their own energy. That's what it's for. It's like an energy interface. So also, besides that, I've actually my whole life been trained in quantum touch energy healing. My uncle, when he started doing it probably around the time I was born, and my whole life he would kind of show me different energy healing techniques. Quantum touch is, a lot of people ask me like, do I do Reiki? I've never been trained for Reiki. Quantum touch is apparently a little different. I'm not really sure what the differences are between that and Reiki, but a lot of people say that quantum touch supposedly is actually a little more powerful in some aspects. So with quantum touch, we channel the energy up from the earth, like up to our heads and then down through our arms for like the main kind of more physical, like yin or yang energy technique. Yin energy, using that technique with quantum touch is more an intuitive way of doing it, which I actually like to do as well. But it's interesting with the spears. If you're channeling the energy through your hands, then holding a spear, it amplifies it because there's quartz and magnets inside it. So that's kind of, one of the reasons why I made these, which makes them very interesting. And a lot of people ask me, like, how do you use them? That's how I would say to use them. Someone said here, can I harness natural energy from the earth with these spears? Yes, you can. You can actually, through the technique I just said, you can just pull the energy up from the earth and then down through your arms and through the spears. So it's very interesting. And a lot of people, they're like, what is all this? Like, what is energy even? Like, how, people ask me that at shows sometimes that don't understand all of this. And I mean, really, you can just look at Star Wars to like really understand it. In Star Wars, they always talk about the Force. Like, what is the Force? It's like in all of us, in everything, like in the entire universe. It's like what runs everything in the universe. And what it is really is like chi or love energy. That's what it is. And I mean, to me, just the idea of God in general is like a one, all-encompassing, like one life force energy. And to me, that's what I feel I am channeling when I do energy work. And I'm going to do an episode soon explaining this all. I'm really excited about it. I'm actually going to be kind of doing it in a Jedi outfit. So I'm going to get to that at some point soon once I get my studio going, the new studio. And so that's going to be really interesting. But yeah, so also what's interesting about these spears is I charge them all onto an energetic collective. So through quantum touch, there's this technique where it's the quantum entanglement technique. The idea of quantum entanglement is actually, I'm going to look it up so I can explain to you guys what that is. Because if I just say it right now, I won't explain it as well. Okay, so quantum entanglement is a physical phenomenon that occurs when a pair or group of particles is generated, interact, or share spatial proximity in a way such that the quantum state of each particle of the group cannot be described independently of the state of the others. And that's just the beginning of that. But so that's what's interesting is like basically like energetically, like, and scientists have already proven this, you can actually take two objects and charge them onto a collective. And it doesn't matter how far apart these objects are spaced. Like if you charge them together and then you bring them to opposite sides of the world, they're still interconnected. So just look into the idea of quantum entanglement. It's very interesting. And that's how they can be interconnected. So I actually use this technique to charge all my spears onto a collective. And I have made hundreds of spears. Many, many incredible people have my spears. I've sold hundreds. So a lot of very powerful energy workers have my spears. I have a NASA astronaut who has one of my spears. Actually, different celebrities and lots of interesting people have them. And so I charge them all on this energetic collective. And that's what makes it so interesting, because every new spear I make makes the whole collective stronger. Every person who channels energy into their own spear also makes the whole collective stronger. So that's what's so amazing about them. Really, it's just like, I've probably made hundreds at this point. I started making them about 5 years ago, and actually maybe 6 years ago now. And a lot of people ask me what actually caused me to start making these. It's kind of a long story, but I was always very inspired by ancient civilizations. It was just like, ever since I can remember, I was obsessed with the idea of like Egypt and Atlantis. And I'm sure that's a past life thing. I'm sure I've been to Egypt, and a lot of places there were, felt very interesting to me. Like they felt familiar. And so I kind of know that I was there before, and probably Atlantis before, because it's like, why would I be so interested in those things like as a young kid, so um and I would read about them all the time. And so I was always like very interested in the idea of like what crystals could be used for, kind of before it was even popularized by the new age or hipster kind of movement with it. But um and like ancient civilizations in general, like everyone is always carrying spears around or staves, and I'm like, why don't people still do this, I always thought it was really cool, and I wanted to make my own version. So I guess like shaman spears are kind of like a way of mixing the two together. And I didn't even know what scepters were until after I started making them. People started asking me, what are scepters? Oh, thanks for the donation, Lucky Jackson. Really appreciate it. But yeah, so people are always asking me, what are scepters? Um, and or like what inspired me to make my spears, and if I actually was inspired by scepters. And I had no idea what scepters were um until I started making my spears and people started asking me this. So I'm actually gonna pull that up right now and share my screen. So a scepter is actually, the definition for scepter is a staff or a baton borne by a sovereign as an emblem of authority. So it also means royal or imperial authority, but sovereignty. Just think about that, sovereignty. That is such an incredible like word. It's just, this is something that always comes up when Laura Eisenhower does shows with me. A lot of people say that I'm a very sovereign person, and I just love that term. I mean, it's really like the essence of freedom. I'm trying to look up the actual definition right now. So, okay, the authority of a state to govern itself or another state. But then that can also be taken as the authority of an individual to govern itself, So it's just such an incredible term. And so here, I'm trying to find some images. I had some pulled up before the show before, but then I had technical issues. So I want to show you guys some pictures of ancient Egyptians with scepters. Sorry, 1 second here. Okay. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. So this is if you've been to Egypt before, you'll see that a lot of the glyphs in Egypt, almost all of them, have these pharaohs are carrying these strange devices, which are scepters. And I want to know what they're used for. It was so interesting to me when I was there. I saw it everywhere. And I'm like, what is this? Like, what are they, like, what are the purpose of these? I don't think that they were just an object, Like, I don't think it was just like a symbol of authority, like it says. Like, um, I think it really was something more. And so I think that's really interesting. And also there's the idea of like Merlin. Merlin has a scepter or like a staff with a crystal on it. So I didn't really know about these things or make the connection when I started making them. I just started making them, and I think I probably had some past lives where I was kind of maybe making these before or had one before because it came in very strongly. But so the interesting thing is, what the way I started making these was actually at the time I was reading the Iliad and the Odyssey, and it was talking a lot about ancient civilizations and everyone in it, they're like carrying spears in a battle, and I just kept thinking like, man, like spears are so cool. And um I had this friend come over who's like a rapper, I was dating someone who was like a producer rapper at the time, and he had another rapper friend come over to record. And so we're actually they were in the studio, and his friend asked me if I could take a picture as an Artemis character for his comic book series. And um he was like, but I need you to have a weapon so that I can take a picture for reference. And I'm like, well, I don't have a weapon. I don't know what you want me to do. And he was like, well, you need to find one somewhere because I need to take a picture of you right now. And I was like, well, dude, I don't know what you want me to do. And then it was really funny because I had actually just picked a bunch of bamboo in Topanga Canyon, and I was going to use them for just I don't even know why I did it. I think I just thought the bamboo was cool, and I don't know, maybe I was planning on making something with them. I'm not really sure. And then so I was like thinking about spears. I already had spears on my mind because I was reading the Iliad and the Odyssey. And then I had like a long pointy crystal because at the time I was making these crystal necklaces, and I had this like uh rose quartz obelisk, and I was like, okay, I could make a spear with this, but it'd be like way cooler than a spear. So I just put it on the end and I started wire wrapping it and leather wrapping it, and I just started grabbing like random things I had because they were like in a studio session. And so I just started grabbing all these random things and adding it to the staff, and like I just kept adding more to it, and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And like by the time I was done, like my friend was like, wow, this is awesome, and he took pictures of me, and he never even ended up making the comic book series. But I started my Shaman Spears company. And so it was funny, like right after that, I went to a few different festivals, like kind of like burner kind of events that were like kind of with smaller groups. It wasn't like a normal music festival. It was actually like there's this really cool group in LA called Cosmic Carnival. And it was funny how I got into that because I was with a group of people where we were trying to make a Cosmic Carnival festival, and then we heard of this one, and we ended up going to it just because we thought they had stolen our idea, but they'd actually been doing it for a long time. And it was kind of this like group of burners that were like out in the mountains in LA, like that through this festival every once in a while. And it was actually very like tapped in like spiritual people. And so I had the spear with me, and I was just kind of like running around at the event with it, and everyone's like, wow, this is really cool. Do you make these? And I was like, well, I just made this one. This is the only one I have. And they're like, oh my God, if you made more, I would love to buy one. And I was like, really? And like everyone kept saying that it looked like I was from like Avatar or something. And I was like, wow, okay, I guess I need to make more of these. So I started making more, and it was a process. It was like I kind of always make a whole batch at once. So, I guess now I call it a collection, but every time I make a new batch, they always improve a little more. And eventually I started selling it at kind of like underground burner events in LA, which was really difficult because I would be just kind of at these like kind of techno things till like 4 to sometimes 6 a.m. sitting there behind my booth like selling these. And a lot of times people are like, oh, what is this, what's the energy? So that was like really interesting. And then after a while it was probably also around that time, actually, after I made my first spear, I was also at contact in the desert. And that was the first time I had gone in contact in the desert like 6 or 7 years ago. And that was very interesting because I brought it there, and a lot of people actually took pictures of me there. And I think there was actually an interview with me on Vice. If you Google it, you can find Vice did an interview with me there, and I'm actually holding my first spear, so kind of forgot about that. But yeah, so I actually brought it at Contact, and that was my first UFO um, event that I ever did. I didn't realize that UFO conferences were really a thing that people like went to, and it's funny because all my favorite authors just happened to be there. I didn't know about it until I got there. And then I realized like there was this whole scene that like all these authors and like researchers would come together and present, which was like the UFO community. So that's how I got into the UFO community. And it was actually really interesting because I was just kind of like went for the because I found the poster and I was like, oh, UFOs, that's cool. And I just went and I didn't really realize who was all going to be there. And so I had my first spirit contact too. And then, after a while, I started going to more like UFO events. And then I started realizing like, wow, I can sell these at UFO conferences. So I started selling them at UFO conferences and I was selling them at the kind of underground events. I actually, in LA, I started doing a lot of really cool events. One of them was like Alex Gray. Whenever Alex Gray came in town, I'm sure a lot of you know of that artist. Whenever he came in town, I would be asked to sell at his events. And I usually was actually set up right next to him. So he would be on stage painting. It was actually like a really cool event. Like you'd be on stage painting in a theater and there would be like tons of people would come out and they would have like a DJ that would be playing this like really cool, like trippy, like EDM kind of music. And he would be painting and then I would always be like kind of like right next to the stage with my spears. So that was really cool. And then eventually, I started selling at UFO conferences. And this is actually what got me in as a speaker at UFO conferences because I was selling them at the UFO conferences. And then people, were always seeing me at the conferences. And then after a research trip I did in Egypt, someone asked me to present my research at a conference. It was actually the 5D events. So I started speaking at the 5D events, which are kind of like smaller UFO conferences around LA. That one I believe was in Vegas. And so that's kind of how I actually got into the UFO scene. Alien Con is one of my favorite events to sell my spears at. I've done that like the last 3 years before the pandemic kind of took over. And that was really fun because, obviously it's like Giorgio, the Ancient Aliens crew, they like run that event. So a lot of that one's kind of more, it's like Comic-Con-y mixed with like the UFO conference people. And then like, Contact in the Desert. If you guys don't know about Contact in the Desert, that's like the Woodstock of UFO conferences. I mean, that's like the biggest one. It's really cool. It used to be a Joshua Tree, like way out in the desert, at this really cool retreat center. And then they ended up moving it to Indian Wells and Desert Hot Springs. Indian Wells is a really, really amazing resort, actually, really gorgeous, but it's a whole different vibe. It really changed the vibe of the event. I always love Contact in the Desert. I normally always go every year. Obviously there's a pandemic now, so you can't do it now, but yeah, I really enjoyed being there every year. And it definitely changed the vibe. It was like before I would go and just camp in the desert, and then I started getting a fancy hotel room and staying there. And I sold my spears at the event the last year that it was going. And it was kind of like not as fun because I missed all the speakers, but it's interesting. Hopefully I can speak at Contact in the Desert if it comes back again. So, like doing all that kind of actually got me in as a speaker at different events. So, and eventually I became a reporter on Third Phase of Moon. So that's my whole backstory with being in the UFO scene. Really enjoyed conferences and I hope they happen again soon. I love just like bringing my spears out to conferences and then, presenting one day and selling my spears the whole time. And it's a lot of work, a lot of being social and talking with people for like, hours on end. But now that that's all gone, I do kind of miss it. And, doing these YouTube shows is kind of my way of still connecting with the community. That's how I got onto third base of Moon as a reporter over the summer. And, that kind of was my way of getting back into the UFO community virtually. So I did do one event. It was a camp disclosure in North Carolina. I did that event a while back, a little before I started this show, and that was a good time. I really enjoyed that. So I hope there's more conferences coming up soon. Hopefully the world will open up more. But right now, all my new collection, like I said, is online at shamanspears.com. Actually, I want to show you guys something real quick, and I don't have it next to me right now, so give me 1 second, and I'm going to grab it. Sorry. Okay, back. So every person who purchases a spear gets this ancient scroll. So I make these really cool ancient scrolls. They actually have like a wax seal, and they're pretty legit. I actually make these myself. And everyone that purchases a spear, this comes back with them for free. And yeah, so it's really interesting actually, because why did someone say, did you wash your hands? Okay, that's kind of weird. Sorry, my nails are dirty or something. I'm always working on painting things and whatnot. But yeah, so every person that gets a spear gets a scroll, and it has this really cool message that kind of talks about what it means to have one. So they're kind of fun, and it's a secret though. I won't tell you what's in the scroll. You have to get one to know what is actually in it. Oh, someone bought a spear. Hope's Coordinates said, I'm squeaking with joy right now. So excited that my spear is sold out to me. Thank you for getting a spear. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Bob asks, what's inside? You'll find out what's inside if you get a spear. But basically it's a certificate that talks about what it means to have one. And so it kind of makes it more special. But I'm really excited to get your spear to you, Hope. And also, just so everyone knows, I really updated my whole shipping system. So I got my own label printer. And, I'm like getting very official with my business now. It's super exciting. So, yeah, like now, anytime anyone orders a spear, I will literally ship it out the next morning and it will get to you right away. I print my own shipping labels. I have all my own boxes ready to go. So, yeah, no worries. Your item's going to get there right away. So it took me a while to get that all figured out. But so I also wanted to show you guys, obviously I have these bigger spears. These very long ones. I actually have staff-sized ones that I normally sell too, but I had issues selling those in the mail. Like I said, I normally sell them at conferences, and so I didn't never have to worry about the shipping thing before. And once I started shipping them out, the very long staff-sized ones that are like Merlin staffs, those always seem to have issues in the mail. So, but my whole collection that I have online right now, I don't do any that are super long, like staff size, that are like as tall as you, just because it just doesn't work out in the mail, unfortunately. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I just don't like to risk it, So this whole collection, these ones up here are very kind of probably about 3-4 feet long at most. And those are the longer, small staff size, I call them. Then they ranged from that size all the way to these smaller sizes too. Like these ones are kind of cute. You know, I didn't make these at first. They were spears. That's why they're called shaman spears. Like they were always long at first, and then I started making smaller ones eventually. And so these ones right here, they're really fun because they're just kind of like little ones, and I just think they're really cute. Like to me, like they're like baby spears because like I didn't make these till a little while later. So but yeah, so you know, these ones are actually kind of great for little kids. I actually have a lot of people buy them for like 3 year olds and things like that, but be careful because you don't want them to like poke their eye out or something. But these ones are actually really cute and fun, and it's like a good one size. Like I said, they're great for Reiki or quantum touch, any kind of energy work. They're great with. And I actually had a ton of energy workers who bought spears from me. Conscious Life Expo is one of the main events. I'm normally at Conscious Life Expo selling every year, and people will a lot of like major like energy worker kind of people that do it as a profession have come to me that have purchased some the year before, and they'll see me again the next year and be like, hey, like I did this, or like they would explain to me a story of something they did like using my spear, and I get like really blown away. Honestly, I've had some like wild stories of like things people have told me. I've actually had like mediums tell me that they helped clear like negative spirits out of people's homes with them, and that my device was like these spears were actually the best device they ever used for it, which that was really wild to me. And then I also had, this was a really cute story, but I actually had a couple come to me and say that they used their spear, the end of it, to they had kind of a longer crystal point on the end that was like a little skinnier, and they actually used theirs to put their wedding rings on at night before they went to bed, and they would set it on their bedstand. So I thought that was really cute. Here's another little bit longer size. This one's like an alien spear. I think this one's pretty sweet. I like the lime green ones. A lot of people think the lime green ones are a bit much, I think, but I like these ones. So, they range from like these smaller sizes all the way up to the longer sizes here. And I even have more like mid-size ones. So that's all that. Does anyone have any questions for me? I think I've talked about most of the things I had planned here. Someone said, Leon says, stab a fish. Yeah, oh, I will say this. Actually, so a lot of people will tell me, they're like, what do you use the spears for? And actually, my favorite way of using them is going hiking with them. I actually go hiking with them all the time. Anytime I go hiking, I always bring like a kind of a longer mid-sized one with me. And I just love like going on long hikes or climbing mountains in them because, like I said before at the beginning of this video, it's a way of like interfacing with your energy. Just magnetically with the crystals inside, it really just interfaces with your own energy. So if you're kind of like in a meditative state, walking in nature, it really feels great to just hold one while you're doing that. Like I actually take people on hikes with me all the time, and like every time I go on a hike with people, I make them all carry my other spears with me. Like I'll give everyone a spear, and then I'll be like holding one, and it's so fun. I really love it. And a lot of burner people will get it for like festivals. So, but you do have to be careful with them. Like obviously if you drop a crystal, it will break. So I do have to say that like a lot of people will just like kind of like go to festivals with them and be like partying and going crazy with them all night, and then they're like, oh, I like broke the crystal. It's like, yeah, you can't be that crazy with it. So yeah. Oh, and also one technique I like to tell people, like when people are like, oh, well, how do you use it at like conferences, sometimes that don't really understand energy work super well, is like I'll explain, if you actually, so there's one energy healing technique that I've learned in a lot of different classes on modalities before, and they say if you actually just go like this over your chakras, in a clockwise motion, you can actually help like unblock your chakras and open it up. Just the intention of doing this. And that's just with your finger. So if you do take a spear and do that, that actually makes it more powerful. Like I can feel that right now. Just doing this over your chakras with a spear is like you like I can feel it. It's pretty intense. It's actually a really amazing feeling. So um yeah, that's one great technique. You know, you can do it to yourself or have someone else do it on you. So yeah, it's pretty fun. Let me think here. Does anyone have any questions? Um Someone said willowwood. No, actually all the wood is bamboo. So I actually made a special collection out of Hollywood once, but those sold out like right away. So someone said here, would anyone would like to collab on a design? You know, I actually I do have I have done like custom designs before, but just so everyone knows, it takes a while to make custom ones. So it's actually a little easier for me if you just order offline what I already have, because then I have to actually go through and like find all the crystals, and it kind of takes a lot longer, but I can do that. And it's also kind of hard for me to keep up with messages. Like if people are just messaging me, I get so many messages these days. It's honestly kind of hard to keep up with. Someone said, where can I get them? I have that on the screen below here. Shamanspears.com. So shamanspears.com. Just check that out, and they're there. Someone said, are you going to any conferences or festivals with them this year? Well, if the world opens back up, I would love to. At this point, I have no plans to do that, but I really hope I can again at some point. Right now, you know, like I said, just go to my site. I'm doing everything virtually right now, and I will have this studio ready to go soon. So that's going to be cool. Someone said, can you make Star Wars themed ones? That would be very interesting. I like that idea. I mean, I already feel like they're kind of like a Star Warsy sci-fi thing. Like, that's kind of the idea of them, I guess. Oh, I forgot to mention earlier. Actually, I forgot to mention this. On all the spears, I actually find crop circles that have been found around the world. I collect crop circle designs and I paint them on the spears. Oh, and I usually put the Eye of Horus or the Eye of Ra on the top part right here. On almost every spear I do that. And then but I put these crop circle symbols on my spears just because I just think it's really interesting, and the idea of, you know, it's like obviously if they're aliens, like the aliens are trying to send us a message, so why not, you know, kind of expand that message to, you know, because like obviously like quartz, like it amplifies. So I thought it'd be interesting, like, you know, if you've heard of the experiments where you write love or hate on water and it changes the molecular structure of the water, I thought it'd be interesting, like what if I put the crop circles on the spears? How would that obviously would amplify the message, because, you know, they're symbols. Putting the symbols on something that amplifies the message can really help broadcast the message. So I think that's very interesting. Oh, sorry, I haven't been looking at the questions here. Someone asked, what do you think is located at Area 51? So I actually have an episode where I investigated it. Please go feel free to check it out. It's actually really goofy. It's not super serious. It's actually called the Area 51 Special Report. It's on my show. But yeah, I kind of did this like funky like mockumentary where like me and a time traveling DJ friend went out there and investigated it. So that was actually very interesting. And yeah, so if you want to see my report on that, please go check that out. But what I think is that Area 51 is technology beyond anything most of us could probably comprehend. And Um, I don't know. I think at very lower levels, like high clearance levels, there's probably aliens and things like that. But honestly, that place, that particular base has been so like so many people have talked about it and done all these like like there's the whole storm area 51 thing and although I think after all those things happen like from what I've heard they've actually moved everything that was there to an underground base in Utah. So if anyone's heard of domes, deep underground military bases, there's actually major ones all over the country and they interconnect with these underground trains that are like these bullet trains and they're all over the country and so I think a lot of the really major ET stuff has probably been moved to those places just because there's been so much attention on Area 51. But actually, I have a friend, Jim Goodall. He was a mechanic working for the Blackbird fighter jets, and he gave me a book. Actually, right before I went to Area 51, he sent me a book that showed these pictures of all the like brand new fighter jets, like the Blackbird. It was like Black Hawk or Blackbird something, like the crazy ones that kind of like they I mean at the time like they would have been like UFOs. Like no one knew what those were at the time or that those were invented and it shows like pictures of them all lined up on the strip at Area 51. And I think that's really cool cuz yeah, like I'm sure that they have all these they probably already have anti-gravity technology ships there and I think that's really cool that they probably test from my understanding they test out a lot of their newer aircraft at Area 51 and when I went out there I was hoping like maybe I'd see things in the sky like around there but it's interesting there's actually a mountain range kind of surrounding the main area where like S4 and everything's located so I think they have it there just so that people don't go there and be like looking around but if you ever go out there definitely the little Alay Inn is a cool place to go. You can stay there overnight. So I went to the back gate of Area 51. So that's in the video on my channel. But me and my friend went to the back gate, and we were told that if we crossed the gate, we would be shot or arrested or both. So didn't ever actually go inside. I was hoping I could interview a worker there, but apparently if you interview anyone that works there, they'll be fired. And I don't want people to lose their jobs. And I actually didn't see anyone anyway. I think they hide in these little buildings and obviously they're watching what's going on outside. But yeah. Rex Bear from Leaks Project says Shaman Spear time. Yeah, this is my special Shaman Spear episode. He has a spear that he is always showing in his videos. Rex, just so you know, I'm doing this new thing with my collection where I'm making these leather handles now, and they're so much better this way. Rex actually gave me the idea to start autographing my spears. I think his spear was the first one I ever autographed. I just like I don't know. I didn't really ever think like I was cool enough to autograph my spears before, but he asked me. And then after that I'm like, okay, I guess people think I'm cool and maybe I should autograph them. So I started doing that. And that was actually around the time I was on Star Trek. I was actually doing autographs at this event after being on Star Trek and I'm like, okay, maybe I should start autographing my spears. So I've been doing that. So if you want to get an autograph from me, just purchase a spear, and all my spears are autographed. Someone said I watched the video you went to Vegas. You know what's so funny is so my last live show I did that was just me. I had like done this really cool like video in Vegas where I went to this place called Area 15 and it was like there was this area where it was like the inside of a spaceship and it was like this really cool like I don't know, like light and sound, like art installation. And I just kind of did a video dancing around there and I put it up on my show in the last episode I did where it was just me. And I actually had people commenting saying it was demonic and that they were unsubscribing. So it actually made me kind of sad. I was like, okay, like I'm sorry you think me dancing in a spaceship is demonic. I hope you guys don't think I'm demonic. I like to dance and I like being in spaceships, so I'm sorry if anyone saw that and they were bothered by it. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Ninja Realm, because I had to address that because apparently people thought me dancing inside a spaceship was demonic. But I'm actually the furthest thing from being demonic. So if you'd like to see what I'm talking about, just go look at my last episode. But I actually like really dance in a very like kind of shamanic way. Like that's just the way I dance. And I don't know, I guess maybe they were weirded out by it. So just had to address that, you know. Apparently I look kind of crazy when I dance. Sorry. But yeah, it was a really cool place. Definitely recommend going to Area 15. It's this cool place in Vegas where you can just, you know, it's just like these cool art installations. It's all alien themed. Yeah. So, oh, also talking about speaking of shamans, that's something else I wanted to talk about. You know, a lot of people they're like, "Oh, why are you like calling the spears shaman spears? Like, not anyone can be a shaman. You know, you shouldn't just like market shamanism." And you know, it's not really like that. Like the way I think of it is like, you know, a lot of people they think shamans are just like people in Peru that do these certain practices, but to me, a shaman, and actually, you know, this is actually a very common, like, shamans are the healer from, like, any sort of community. So, you know, like, there's shamans from, like, every culture worldwide since the beginning of time. You know, there's shamans in Peru, you know, there's shamans in, there's Native American shamans, there were shamans in, what's that place near Russia? Um, Siberia. Siberia had shamans. There's African shamans. There's been shamans all over the world. And it's like, okay, what is the definition of a shaman? A shaman is someone who works with energy, who is a healer. So that's why I call my spears shaman spears. I actually originally they were called warrior goddess spears because I was actually kind of going through a lot at the time when I made them, and I wanted I kind of it was like my way of like working through things. Like me for me like making my art is my way of kind of like alchemizing things or like transmuting energy, like negative energy. um so really it's my way of healing myself, just making my spirits in general, and then I make them for other people to heal themselves. But you know, I kind of made them as like a female empowerment kind of thing, and then like all these guys wanted to buy them too, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll call them warrior goddess and shaman spears. And then after a while, um people just start calling them shaman spears, so then I just ended up sticking with that. So so that's why they're called shaman spears. Someone said my great grandfather was a shaman of the Navajo tribe. That's really cool. Really like that. Um, yeah, you know what's interesting is my great grandma was from a Cherokee Indian reservation, and she was definitely Cherokee. Like everyone in my family knows this. Like she looked Native American, and my grandpa looked Native American as well. But for some reason, when I did an ancestry test, it didn't say I was Native American. And like, I feel like Elizabeth Warren now because I told everyone I was Native American my whole life, and then um, apparently I'm not. I don't know what that means. I mean, I know that my great grandma was Native American. I know she was. Like, for a fact. So either someone in my family was with someone else, or the ancestry stuff is a lie. I don't know. I mean, I know I don't look Native American. I was kind of like thinking like my nose, like I don't know if Native Americans have that like weird, not weird, but you know, like kind of nose that kind of comes down like this. I don't know. So I know I'm like the whitest person on earth, but I really thought I was Native American. I mean, I know my great grandma is, but that's another funny thing is I've had a lot of very liberal people tell me that my shaman spirits were cultural appropriation. What do you guys think about that? So actually the first time I heard this, I had no idea what cultural appropriation was. And I was at Politicon and I was actually selling my spirit. It was actually very interesting because I'm Politicon, so political conference that happens in LA or like all over every year. And this, I was in LA and I was working for the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, and they just let me have my spears at their booth. And the conference didn't know this. The conference had no idea I was going to be bringing shaman spears to the booth. So it was really funny because actually the booth was right between MSNBC and the Washington Post. So they had their little talk show stages set up, and I'm just right in between them with Shaman Spears under the Free and Equal Elections Committee like logo. And everyone was like coming up to me and they're like, "What are Shaman Spears and why do you have them here?" And it was really funny because I just started telling everyone, I was like, "Well, I'm just trying to transmute all this negative propaganda here." And it was really fun. It was an interesting event, like having the spears there, like right in the middle of all that. But so someone comes up to me, a lot of people were interviewing me, and this one journalist comes up to me and they had cameras all around, and I'm holding my spear and I'm in like this like pinstripe like USA kind of outfit, and I'm holding my USA shaman spear. And he comes up to me and he's like, "What is this?" And I was like, "They're shaman spears. They're for channeling energy." And he's like, "Well, why do you have them here?" I was like, "Well, I'm trying to transmute all this kind of negative propaganda that's going on." And he was like, "Don't you know this is cultural appropriation?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What's cultural appropriation?" And he's like, "Well, it's if you take someone else's culture and you act like it's yours or something like that." And I was like, "Wait a minute. Are you telling me that spears are from like a different culture or something?" I mean, I'm okay, hold on. I'm sorry. If we're talking about spears here, every ancient culture around the world had spears, okay? Like spears were the first weapon. It's like you put something sharp on a stick, that's a spear. Everyone has spears, okay? I'm like, second of all, didn't we all supposedly originate in Africa? I mean, I know that we didn't. I know that we're probably from aliens, but you know, I know this dude, he's like a mainstream person, so I know that he probably thought we all originated in Africa. So I was like, dude, like, didn't we all originate in Africa? Like, aren't we all like the same like people? Like, come on here. And then like, you know, so he's like, and then he's acting like shaman spears or something someone else made. I'm like, this is my own creation. Like, no one else does this. I mean, I hope they don't. And I mean, I know every ancient culture had spears. And I guess there was the scepter thing where people put crystals on spears, but pretty much every culture did that too. So then I'm thinking, I'm like, wait, are you saying this because there's feathers on it? Like, is that what you mean here? Like, apparently having feathers on something you're selling immediately makes it Native American, and no one's allowed to do that. So just addressing that, not cultural appropriation. I invented myself, but in case you're an idiot and need to be reminded, spears were invented in every ancient culture all around the world. So, I mean, apparently I'm cultural appropriating cavemen, so I'm sorry, cavemen. Don't mean to do that to you. Just joking around here. Anyway, um, let me see here. Someone said, yeah, commercial DNA tests are deceptive. You know, it's interesting. DNA tests. I really feel like these organizations, they did this to really collect everyone's DNA to figure out what alien races they're descended from. Like, why else would they want to do that? Because, like, everyone's obviously it's like they get like all your DNA and then they're just like, oh, you're from here and here and here. It's probably all a bunch of bullshit. And yeah, so I think that's really interesting. The whole idea of bloodlines is really interesting to me. And honestly, like even like really seriously thinking about it, if you look at these ancestry tests, it's like they're like, oh, you're like, 80% Northwestern European and then like 15% Asian or, whatever it's saying. It's like, wait a minute. So for that to be in my DNA, like if we all supposedly originate in Africa, at what point does your ancestors' DNA show that they're from a certain place? Like that's what I never get about this stuff. Like at what point, how do we evolve over time if we're all supposedly from Africa and we were all like at one point, I don't know, like Middle Eastern looking or something like that? How did we like change complexions and change, hair color and eye color? That's all just so weird to me. It's like, okay, like how can you prove like so it's like the ancestry test says you're German. Okay, what in my DNA means that I'm from this place? Like how can you say that? Like does this group of people have to be in this area having sex with all the people in their tribe for like 1,000 years for it to show up that you're from this area? And then at that point, it's like, what if the person moves somewhere else and then their family is there for like 100 years and then they go to this other place? Like none of it even really makes sense to me. I don't get it. I really feel like and it's like, okay, like, how can you like sit there and actually say that that makes sense? Like I'd like to actually see someone try to explain this in a way that is scientifically like this is what it is. It doesn't make any sense. And like everyone's saying in the chat here, like I think it all comes down to human and alien hybrids. I think these different races like seeded us at different times throughout history. And I think a lot of us, some of us may have been left over from other races that came here before. Some of us like were interbreeding with different races. And I think like that's why a lot of us like are, we all are from like different races, people that are Mexican, people that are Asian, people that are, Northwestern European, people that are African. It's like, I think, the people from those areas, it's like, how would someone like evolve over time to look like this way in that area? I think it really comes from like alien races coming in and seeding the people in those different areas. And that's how they knew like, oh, this is like the people that's descended from our race because they look like this and they're here. I don't know. I think it's just bloodlines to me is all very interesting. Someone said Atlanta, it's not Africa. That makes a lot of sense. It's like, obviously, there's all these places that are under the ocean now. I mean, scientists have done tons of research on this. And, just look online. There's tons of underwater pyramids that obviously at one point the water line was way lower or, the land was just a completely different shape. So, like, some areas were out of the water and some areas weren't. And then they, like, switched. So, yeah, so that's all, man, that's the stuff that I'm the most interested in. I mean, that's what really got me into making shaman spears and being so interested. Just being interested in ancient civilizations is just so fascinating to me. Someone said we're dependent of 22 different alien races. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. And it's like, okay, so if like a certain race wanted to keep track of who was descended from them, it would make sense for them to like put something in the DNA or something where it was like everyone that was descended from them looked a certain way, that would be an easy way to like track them, and it's funny because it's like at one point, we're all in our own specific places in the world, like all these different races, and then they all start intermingling in like recent history. Um, so yeah, I think that's all very interesting. Someone said straight out of Lemuria. I love that. It sounds like straight out of Compton. Straight out of Lemuria. Hold on, I'm gonna put that up on here. I love that. Straight out. I feel like I want to put that on a t-shirt. Do you like care if I steal that? I'm sorry. I just had to write that down. I'm sorry. Would it be okay if I stole that? Because I feel like I want to. I just think that's a great idea. It's like straight out Compton, but straight out Lemuria. I love it. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap up here. Been going on here for a while. I'm so sorry if you logged into my previous show and were waiting, and obviously I had those like technical difficulties. So yeah, I finally figured it out. There's an issue with my webcam, but hopefully that doesn't happen in future shows. Thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. Um, Joseph Korea. He says, watch CBC News YouTube doc. Twins get mystifying DNA ancestry test results. It explains the DNA test deception. By the way, you're awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Really appreciate it. And thanks, Hope says, I'm sorry if y'all wanted the Jade Hematite Prosperity Spear. It's mine now. That's a really cool one. I really like the coloring on that one's really sweet, honestly. Those are like my favorite colors together, purple and green. So I really like that one. Um, all right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. And again, if you want one of these insanely powerful energy channeling devices, please go to shamanspears.com. You can see that right here below, shamanspears.com. And my latest collection is out, which is called the Pantheon Collection. And like I said, every person who buys one, they get this awesome scroll for free that I made myself that goes with them that has a really cool message. It's a secret. It's how you get it. So also, it helps me fund this show and everything I am trying to do in the future here, which is I have a lot of plans. And this is my way of, really funding my whole operation here. So would really appreciate it. Also, they make great gifts. So until next time, you guys, I'm going to get some interviews planned here, hopefully, and moving into the studio. So not sure if my next show will be in the studio or if I'll do one before then. But until next time, you guys, over and out.